Well, there. It is Seggs weeks. How many more ways can we call it? Knocking boots, pillow talk, sleepovers behind closed doors. Let's dive into my therapist reaction of fantasy suites. And thank goodness that they didn't put Leslie and Theresa in the same room. Thank you. Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. I want to start this video with a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to do that and then end the video with lessons we can learn, especially if you're single, what to do and what not to do. But from my last video, so many comments about the Golden Back and why aren't we hearing more from these women, especially after the tell-all. Just know that I have been working behind the scenes trying to get some of these women on my show to interview them. But they're keeping it really tight, and I think all along the whole emphasis is they do not want to spoil this season. And I'm beginning to think, quite honestly, after I reflected a lot on Nick Viall's interview with April, that they're trying to shut this down a little bit. Because after all, as I said, and some of you commented, it wasn't really a good look. So just know, for the record, that I am trying my hardest behind the scenes to talk with some of these women because I don't really care so much about the behind the scenes and what happened on the show. I just really find these women and their stories so fascinating, as so many of you are connecting with these women and finding love later in life. And then I did a reel on Instagram that I just posted as a short about that emotional reaction with Faith and Gerry, because these younger women from She's All Bach were saying, well, if that was me and I was the fiance, wouldn't you feel a little bit, sensitive about that? But I don't think that's the case, because I think Gerry is just an emotional guy and we've seen him cry a lot, and I think we're going to see more tears. But I'm loving this. Like, let's normalize the conversation that it's okay to cry. Like, women oftentimes want an emotional guy, but then they see it as too much. And I'm just thinking that this is a normal human reaction. And so many of you also said that when you see a partner cry, when you see them express emotion, regret, it makes you feel better, right? That's what closure is in a relationship. I said it in my last video. Closure is when the partner says, I'm just so sorry that I hurt you. And I think that is the chef's kiss. This is why everybody loves this season so much. Okay, so let's start with the fantasy suites. But question to you, I asked my followers, have you been to Costa Rica? Because my husband and my boys and I went to Costa Rica years ago for Christmas. I have to tell you, it's just a magical place. But they are in RNL, and in fact, we stayed at the exact same place. So cool. They have like these natural hot tubs. That balcony overlooking is where they serve their meals. I just thought it's so fantastic. I was excited about Costa Rica. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with Leslie and zip lines in Costa Rica. But here we start that conversation with Jesse, and that to me, I don't want to make fun of older people, but it was a little bit TMI, as Jesse said. And it reminded me a little bit of like Jack Nicholson. Do you remember that clip?
Things to remember when you get older. Never pass up a bathroom. Never waste a hard-on, and never trust a fart.
So now we're talking about Seggs week. I'm using that word carefully. But what does knocking boots even mean? Like, what does that have to do? I'm like, Gerry, this is a Southern phrase. I looked it up, and knocking boots, for the rest of you, is derived from stripping down. And when you would, like, I guess, slip your boots under the bed, sometimes the boots would knock together and make noise. Okay. So that's what knocking boots actually means. But here's the thing. When we're talking now, we've got our final two, and the finale is going to be in 2 weeks. So we're taking next week, Thanksgiving off, thank goodness. We've got two lovely women, and I just want to say that I adore both, actually, Leslie, and more so Theresa this episode. I'm going to get to that. But I want to keep my page spoiler-free, and I want to keep it as a safe place. So I don't want any negative comments because I've read plenty of comments in the DMs. Everybody always has their favorite, whether that's Leslie or Theresa. But I can see Gerry being a fit for either one of these, just for different reasons. Because Theresa may be what some people call the safe choice because they have more in common to a widow and a widower. But Leslie might be the more exciting choice. And I flip-flop back and forth. I've seen polls. Some people say, 60% Leslie, 40% Theresa. I don't know, but I think the producers are doing an excellent job. The fact that we are so divided is really that they're showing us what they want us to believe. And this is actually just waiting, keeping us all waiting to the end. But I don't want to be judgy. Here's the thing. So often in these shows, and if you haven't watched The Bachelor before, it's post-show that social media can really take a couple down. And I, as a couples therapist, just want to protect the couple, put them in the couple bubble. If I could wrap them in bubble wrap and say, shut off all social media. Do not go there. Don't look at your phone. Don't read the comments. Leslie or Theresa, come to my page. It's safe. I don't want those comments. But for those people, it can be really negative because it can kind of get in your head like, oh my gosh, did I make a mistake? And what I would say is trust the process, trust the decision that you made, and then just go quiet. Just go quiet and come out and help other people get on board with your choice. And that's all you need to do. So I'm hoping that this cast, because they're not so connected to social media, because the reason to go on isn't just to get followers, I'm hoping that they can do that. But that's what I want to say to everyone involved. Just stay off social media because the internet should not have a vote in your relationship. And I've just seen it happen one too many times, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so let's start with Leslie's date. Gosh, they're excited to see one another. There is clearly chemistry between Gerry and Leslie. It has been palpable from night one when she came out of the limo as the old woman and then said, can you help me with that? There has been a sparkle in both of their eyes, and I just love these two. There's so much just goodwill here. And then they have a fun date of rappelling, which we also did. Fun. And yeah, it could be a little nerve-wracking. Some people are saying, well, Leslie, given how athletic she is, but she has a fear of heights, and this is scary. It's scary when you don't even appreciate how much rain is coming down. You're coming down a waterfall, like a cliff. And if you don't stick your feet out, your knees crash into those rocks. So you really have to lean back. And it's scary to lean back because you're rappelling and you're putting your hand down. Now, Leslie said she would have wished that it was ziplining. Here's the thing, Leslie. I crashed on a zipline in Costa Rica. Okay, the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve. I'm on the longest, fastest zipline in Costa Rica, in Monteverde, which is the top of the rainforest. And literally, I'm coming in fast. We even have it on video. And the guy who's supposed to stop you, it's wet, and the rope slips between his hand, and I crash and hurt my neck in Costa Rica, which is another whole story. So Leslie, the rappelling was better than ziplining is all I could say. Anyway, they handled it well. I loved at the end where they're so positive.
I am so proud of you. You just conquered that. And we did it. We did it. All right.
That is exciting because when you confront your fears, right, and you have adrenaline rushing, this is dopamine. This is adrenaline that connects you with someone, and that has a wonderful bonding experience. They're still talking about it at dinner, right? We did this. Confronting your fears is a great date, by the way. Okay, so then afterwards, they're in that pool of water, and I think the poor thing, she might be cold, but they're both very just attentive to one another. Gerry says, you haven't asked me any serious questions, Leslie said, without skipping a beat. I just love they have a good rhythm. Says when was the last time you had sex? He's like, whoa, almost spitting out his drink. So Gerry, by the way, he also talked about in all of the interviews coming up to this about fantasy suites. And he said, this is not what you typically think. So I actually wonder if Gerry had sex with anyone. I'm actually going to guess, let me know in the comments what you think, that he didn't have sex with Leslie or Theresa. They just want us to think that. Because the next morning, right, they're lying in bed, and I don't know if it felt like a little bit awkward, like a little bit forced. Sure, they show Gerry with a little bit more like rumpled hair. I'm thinking, oh, Gerry uses hair gel because maybe he doesn't have the hair gel on. But they're talking about how late they were up, wink, wink, like, ooh, that was fun. And I'm thinking maybe they were just talking, right? But he did reiterate many times in the interviews that this is not about sex. This is really about getting to know one another on a deeper level. And I could totally see that. But I do love Leslie as a really good fit because she is more playful. We've seen them on the ATVs together. She likes dancing. There's a lot of nice banter and laughing. So the one thing, though, that worried me, and people are talking about it, that Leslie did say, I sabotage myself. Okay. And I actually wondered what she meant, meaning that when things are going too well, do you test someone? I don't know what she meant, but I thought a little bit more about this because I could relate to Leslie in this moment. I mentioned that my husband was a widower, and here is where it comes up. You're a single person, or she's been divorced twice, and you feel like everyone else has the secret sauce but you. Everybody else has like cracked the code and figured it out and done the till death do you part, but you haven't. And so of course you're going to be feeling a little bit insecure. I don't know if that's a major sabotage, but it's easy to get in one's head because nothing is for certain. And so back to we're all in hot water. This is where our attachment styles come out and you're going to feel insecure. So I could so relate to that, as I think many of us can, especially if you've been divorced or you're struggling to find a partner. And how do you present that to someone else who that person has been like happily partnered? It's a tough conversation to have. But here's what I love about the show and what feels so different. When Leslie then even turns to the camera and says,
I really like Theresa. She's my friend.
It's like, wait, what show is this? This isn't the typical Bachelor where, remember, as I said at the start, they put like the women together. You had to watch them come back from the overnights and talk about that. Thankfully, they protected them from that. But there's a lovely kind of synergy there, like may the best person win. So I just thought that was really lovely. And I thought Leslie just handled herself really well. I do love these two together. Now, I'm all thinking like, done, check. This is the finale. But then we have Theresa's date. Okay. Now, poor Gerry, the poor guy. I mean, he said on the Women Tell All, thankfully I didn't have a heart attack. But then I'm thinking he could have an emotional heart attack. To go from one night where you were up till 3 a.m. to then start the next day, could you give the man a break? Like, give him a couple of days to recover. I thought for any of us, that's a lot. But to roll right into the next date felt a little bit like unfair, right? Theresa's like, I'm all here, I'm ready. And Gerry, poor guy, just needs some sleep. Okay, now we get to the Theresa date. And she does the hooju, the hug jump. And people are like, oh my God, are they too old for this? No, they aren't. Okay, obviously Gerry handled it. Theresa's like a little thing. Is it silly? I don't know. I just thought, it's sweet. You haven't seen each other. You're excited. I don't put too much into that. But you have to wonder, because Gerry does get quiet. So they agree and they go on their horses and they're riding in the water. And somehow Gerry doesn't look as attentive to Theresa as he was to Leslie, right? And we could read something into that because like the horses are wading into the water and Gerry's not quite attending to Theresa the way he was to Leslie, but it's a different sport. And is he in his head? The question is why. So is he thinking, oh my gosh, Theresa's the one, how am I going to break up with Leslie? Or is he really thinking, what is Leslie doing? And I'm not feeling it for Theresa. He's clearly in his thoughts. So he gets quiet, but we just don't know what the thoughts are, right? Okay, again, good TV. They are keeping us guessing till the end, which I actually love. Again, I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to know at this point because I can see either one of them just making a different fit. But as this episode goes on, I really like Theresa more because we find out more. We're moving away from that whole Kathy drama. And Theresa has really good traits, right? She is attentive. We find out more about her career. Impressive. She's really hardworking. Like, she can make the family work together. She's had her children. She started a career. She started day trading and then, beat out some other people for another job. I think, she's just a no-nonsense kind of person. She has a lot of high energy. She's going to get things done. One could say that Theresa and Gerry have a lot in common. They're both Catholic. I don't know how important that is for Gerry. Is he a churchgoer? Is Theresa a church? What is their faith something that pulls them together? But clearly he's a little bit more quiet. Is he protecting Theresa's heart because she's loved and lost? And now they just fall into this simpatico because I don't even have to explain to you. You get it. I get you. You get me. And remember, on their first date, Gerry said something so important. He said, "This is the first time I didn't cry talking about my late wife," because it's that shared experience. Theresa is also paying attention when they walk into, so they're on their date. And the first part I didn't like that much because, again, I felt like Gerry was preoccupied somehow. Now they're at dinner and he seems to get a little bit more enlivened. And now they're going, and he says, but, the producers are saying, well, how do you think it's going? And he says, well, I'm just not sure if we're going any deeper. But then Theresa does go deeper. And she says, I talked to my late partner. Not uncommon. Lots of people who have had a loss do that. It's like your partner's still there. They're still a part of you. There's a healthy part of grieving there where you're still having conversations. And that is like, we're never going to see this again, okay? We're never going to see a widower and a widow. Well, maybe we will, but it seems like it's such an important, beautiful conversation that these two can just fall into that in a quiet way together. And Theresa, now they walk into the fantasy suite, and Theresa says, "You sleep on the right side of the bed." And that was just like a tiny little moment, but she's paying attention. She's been listening. And because she did make a marriage work, she could make this work too. So that's where, who knows who Gerry's going to pick. Is he going to pick someone who's more exciting, more adventuresome, or is he going to pick someone more familiar, who's been in the same place, who takes care of things? Some people said, Gerry might have to take care of Leslie a little bit more. Maybe Theresa takes care of Gerry in some ways. So I can truly see that either one of those could be a fit for different reasons. But what I love is we're not shying away from the real emotions. We're just going there, right? And that's where I said this is a wonderful season. So at this point, I'm feeling vulnerable too. I don't know who it's going to be. And they threw us last time with Faith. So I can't even feel like I can call it because I thought Faith and Leslie were going to be the final two. So here it is, Theresa is the front runner. I'm not sure. But I could very well see something really lovely because she could be the safe person, and safe's not bad. Safe can be good. They both can be each other's lovely person to kind of heal with. And though they know, and Gerry said, neither one of us wanted this ending, but there's just something that both of them can share in common. And it reminds me, I had a client who, I think they were even in their 80s, and they'd both been widowed, and such a beautiful kind of blending of families. So I can totally see that happen. Okay, so what's coming up? Well, next week, obviously it's going to be really telling. We've got a 2-hour finale, thank goodness, because so much to go over. We've got the daughters weighing in. They've teased us, he's knocking on somebody's door. I thought he's going to have a conversation, send somebody home, but then I see them, both of them in their dresses. Are we going to be at the final? And he's going to have to say, goodbye to one of them? I don't know. Is he going to forewarn them? Is he going to say, I choose you, and then regret that? And then go back and say it's a mistake? I have no idea. Are they going to get engaged? Maybe they don't. Who knows? It's like anyone's choices. So now, what if this is you? You're single. What can we learn? Here's the thing that people don't want. You don't want to be blindsided, right? If you're Leslie or Theresa, you don't want to be told that they love you, but they love somebody more. I get it. It's awful. And you're not going to go on TV, and this isn't going to happen to you. But in dating, anything can happen, because until you're engaged and then even married, and even when you're married, right, things can change. So pay attention, be attentive, watch body language. And then people want to know, like, why, like what happened with Faith. Because in the not wanting to be blindsided, if you told me why we weren't a fit, then that would help me. But oftentimes they are just little things. And if I'm dating multiple people, kind of the beauty of the show is then I actually really do get to choose the person who's best for me. And all those little things then matter, like our attachment styles. Are we in sync? What about religion? What about politics? And the show doesn't highlight that much, but here's what I do know. If you had 3 people to choose from, actually you're less likely then to settle, right? I've heard it said, have a pair and a spare. What does that mean? Have a pair and a spare? I'm going to date 3 people at a time? Yes. I know it's hard because you want to date just one person, right? It's hard enough to find one person you want to date, much less 3 people. But here's the lovely thing, and I did this when I was dating. If you try not to get too attached from the beginning, actually going on dates bumps up the right person even higher, because you're on the date with one person, like Gerry's on the date with Theresa and wondering what Leslie's doing. That could be a good thing. That could be an indicator that you're thinking more of this other person, but like something's missing with this other person. Now, I'm not going to say go sleep with 3 people. I'm saying think about how you feel with that person, who brings out the best in you, what might be going on with them, because they could be dating 2 or 3 people too. But oftentimes there are things that people aren't going to tell you, right? They're not going to tell you, well, it was your religion, or, we're different on politics. They're probably just going to say it's not a fit, and that might be enough information. Why do I mention all of this? Because I even saw an interview with Faith. Everybody wondered, like, why didn't Gerry pick Faith? Well, she said in an interview, maybe because I didn't play pickleball. And maybe because she rode horses and they had different lifestyles. Those things actually really do matter. We want to think that like love conquers all and I'll move wherever, but those things actually can be complicated. And when you have multiple people that you're dating, that one person where you have more in common with kind of bubbles to the top. And that's the stuff we don't see. That's why we can intimate, and we might have a fan favorite. We might, really like Leslie. We might really like Theresa. That's our favorite, but that's not necessarily Gerry's favorite. Okay. So what I'm going to say, but on your own dating journey, try the best you can to date multiple people until you really know that that person you want to go all in on. Okay? Trust me, it will help you solidify that, and then you will have no regrets, because then not because there were no other options, but because you really chose the best fit for you. Okay, I'm going to end it there. It's going to be, again, a great 2 hours. We will see. I don't know if there's going to be a big announcement, if there's going to be an after the final rose. Watch me on Instagram. Make sure that you like this video, that you leave a comment, that you subscribe to my channel, because the algorithm follows all of those things. And until then, happy Golden Bachelor.